Welcome to our Energy Conservation Circle, a part of Omaha Integrative Care's collective care circles. We are super excited to share this content with you. And first, we'll start with some introductions. Emily, would you like to begin?
Sure. Hello, I'm Emily. I'm an occupational therapist and also a yoga instructor at Omaha Integrative Care.
And I am Aurora. I am a provisionally licensed clinical social worker, soon to be fully licensed. I provide therapy and help community partners in mitigating compassion fatigue, burnout, vicarious trauma, and complex trauma. And Emily and I are super excited to share some wisdom about energy conservation. So let's dive right in. To begin, I want to share a metaphor that's really helped to make sense for me, what it looks like to reckon with our access to energy. So one of the most important things that I've learned in my practice is that we have finite access to energy and motivation. It's really easy to think about that in a physical sense, right? When we've done a full day of manual labor, your body's exhausted. We carry all kinds of energy. And so every single one of our facets of energy, in the same way that we have so many facets of our health through the integrative lens, we might meet different kinds of exhaustion. And really trying to make sense of, this finite access to energy and motivation, I love the metaphor of Aquarius, the water bear. So if we think of our bodies as vessels, right, little soul vehicles, one can only carry as much water as the basin can, right? So if our energy is so low, hello, this is Papaya. If our energy is low, you can't pour from an empty basin. And two, if our energy is so much, if there's so much water in the basin that we can't contain it, either way, we lose choice to access. We lose access to agency and autonomy. So in this practice, we're going to find a multitude of ways for you to have choice, voice, and power in how you feel. And that often looks like being really thoughtful with where your energy goes, how you choose to nourish it, and how you choose to protect it. To begin, like we do in every circle, and to open up the conversation with you and your body, let's start with a mindfulness practice. I invite everyone to get in a seat that's comfortable, noticing the ways that your body is touching your seat in a way that it doesn't take too much energy to sit comfortably. Now, in order to have a posture that really helps us get full access to breath, I invite you to take a big breath in. We'll scrunch our shoulders all the way up to our ears, pause for just a moment, and then with our next exhale, just let your shoulder blades slowly melt to the middle of your back. You'll notice your heart center open. And with our heart center open, we have access to all of the parts of breath. So now, with no judgment or intention, just notice your breath. Sometimes when we're feeling pretty overwhelmed or flooded, it can feel really difficult to feel our bodies. And so I invite folks, if it feels okay to you, to place your hand on your heart center. And just notice the natural rhythm of your breath. Maybe the rising and falling of your chest. If you're feeling like you're bringing some of the hustle and bustle or stress of your day with you into this moment, I invite you to really focus your breath at the bottom of your belly. Maybe lengthening your exhales. And just sitting with your body and being present. Let this be an invitation to be here now, not only in your consciousness, but also in your body. We're so honored to share this space with you. And I will let Emily take it away.
Thank you, Aurora. That was beautiful. So I feel as an occupational therapist, I like to explain a little bit more about my philosophy and exactly what I do. So I'm passionate about energy conservation. And just like Aurora said, we have a finite store of this energy. And without being cognizant of this energy limitation, if you will, we can really risk ourselves running low. And as a result of that, we can have a lot of symptoms come up. We can have a lot of stress pop up, anxiety, the list can go on and on and on. And so I really think on a preventative standpoint, when you really know more about why energy is important and then the different parts of energy conservation, really what it is, then this is a tool that you can use lifelong. I've used this with clients in my practice up to 100 years old who ask me, why is this important now? I'm 100 years old. I've lived a whole lifetime and then some. And then they find out exactly what it is, and they find they can actually do more during the day. So some people have told me, I feel like I'm like hacking the system of my energy when I learn this method. Other people just feel like they have more awareness and how they move, how they react to the environment and everything. So my hope is that when you watch this, then you find there's at least one thing that you can take today and apply to your life. This is something that you can come to again and again. It's an evolving process. So if not everything resonates with you, that's perfectly fine. That's actually normal. So there's several different options we're going to provide today for you to take as a toolkit and then use not even just at home, but at work, your spiritual life, with your family, your friends. So this is something that I am hoping that you can take with you. So what is energy conservation? So it's a tri-level model in my philosophy. We have physical energy, we have mental energy, and then we have emotional energy. So not just thinking about the physical energy, having enough energy to move throughout the day, having the energy in order to do your activities, but also having the mental energy, so having that stamina that you can concentrate throughout the day. I really think of the word concentrate, because if I use that with people, then they're like, well, yeah, by the end of the workday, my brain's fried. I can't think. Or at the beginning of the day, my brain's fried, but at the end of the day, my brain's great. So we can kind of see, okay, this may be different for you than it is for me, vice versa. And then also emotional energy. So the emotional energy, I think, is the hardest to describe. It's one that you have to really feel for yourself. And that is a container that you are able to keep for yourself and not have it be affected by the environment. It's a very personal energy. It's the ability to not react to everything that happens in a way where you feel like things are coming at you personally, but a way for you to stand in your power and to really feel that you can keep your own feelings without being overly affected by the people around you. And this is a lifelong one. I believe this is the hardest of all the energy containers. So the three, I believe emotional energy can be the hardest because we aren't really trained in this, honestly. Unless you have a mentor, you have a family unit that really trains you in this, I believe it can be hard to develop. So just knowing that ahead of time, that this is one of the ones that in our culture in the United States, I believe we aren't trained in as much. Now, coming from my yoga philosophy, I'm going to share with you a few tools that I have learned and I have used that have completely changed my life with emotional energy. So we will start with physical energy. Now, we all start the day with a set amount of energy. So it's like the gas in the car. I like that metaphor. That's one that I use. So you fill your tank with gas, you get up in the morning, and you have that gas to use. So you think about, okay, on a typical day, how much energy do I have? And I want you to start to think about this. So I invite you to think at the beginning of the day, do you wake up and after you've woken up, not right away, not right after you've rolled out of bed, but do you feel like you have a really good handle of how much energy you have? So let's go through the routine. So at this point, I'm going to invite you to take out a paper. You can take out a journal, and I'm going to guide you through a little writing prompt right now. So if you need to pause the video to get your journal, to get your paper, I invite you to do that right now. So this writing activity is for physical energy reflection. Think about a typical day, typical work day or a typical weekend day. If you work more during the week, then have it be weekday. If you work more during the weekend, then have it be on the weekend. Think about a typical work day. Write down the times that you work. And then write down when you come home, and then write down when you go to bed. And as you do this, you may think, well, every day is different. Try to think of a typical day, if you will. Think of an average day. So combine them. If it's hard for you to do that, you could do several days. Completely optional. So when you're looking at this schedule, I want you to envision either if you have different colored pens or if you have like a pencil or a pen, options are to either have different colors for different energy levels or to think about a deeper stroke with your pen so you can shade really deeply if you have a lot of energy, or you can use a color like green for a lot of energy. You can use the color yellow for moderate energy, and you can use the color red for not a lot of energy, like a stop sign, stoplight. If you don't have the colors, then you can think about shading really, really deeply, like close together if you have a lot of energy, and then it fades and fades and fades the least energy you have. So I invite you to just think about it almost like a painting of your day, and take a moment and just shade in or color in when you have really good energy. So what are your peak times during the day? And if you don't have any, that's fine. Just go with what you have. And you can pause the video as you do this exercise for the good energy, for the high energy. And then coming back to this exercise, think about the low energy, the opposite spectrum. Think about when you don't have a lot of energy, and either really lightly shade or use the color red. And if it's as much time as little time, just think about the points in the day where you typically don't have a lot of energy. Is it right in the morning? Is it right before bed? Please take a moment right now, pause the video, and do this exercise. And then coming back to the exercise, think about the in-between moments. Where are the areas where you feel like your energy is waning, where you feel like you still have a little bit left, but you're not completely out? The yellow zone, the really moderately shaded zone. Take a moment and fill those areas in. Okay, so now you've had a chance to look at your typical day. So I invite you to look at this and see how you feel looking at this. Does this satisfy you? Are you okay with this? Are there areas that you would like to improve? Without judging, just take a look and see. If anything comes to you that you'd like to write about it right now, maybe you have some thoughts about things right away that you know are draining your physical energy, I invite you to do that right now. This is for you, for your own toolkit. Now, we're going to talk about high, medium, low energy. Really, we're going to talk more about high and low. I'm going to talk about medium a little bit less, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So high energy moments can look like, I feel really good when I climb upstairs and I'm not out of breath. I feel really good because I know that I can run 3 errands in a row, or I can run 2 errands in a row. Whatever your version is, that's your version. For me, it's if I can take 3 errands in a row, then I know I have good energy. If I run one small trip to pick up medication or something and I'm out of breath and I'm feeling like I need to take a nap, that's low energy for me. So we have these activities that we can look at during our day. And is your work demanding you to do a lot of physical activity? Is it your leisure activities? Is it when you come home, you have family, you have obligations, you feel like you have a lot more of that gas being used up? So take a look at it and see. And then take another look at it and see if you need to do all those things on that day. So if this is a typical day for you and you're really pushing that gas pedal several times, or one time if that's too much for you, take a look and see if you can spread that out to other days. Or I tell some of my clients, Do you even have to do all those things? Can you delegate? Are there things that you don't even have to do, or that you can do half of the effort of the activity? So taking a look at really being wise with the energy that you're putting towards these activities. Now, low energy, when we're feeling like we are low on energy, like zero energy, it's where I can lie down and go to sleep like that. Energy, nada. So if I'm feeling like I have just cooked a meal and that was way too much, I had to sit down multiple times, and typically I can do a whole meal, do the dishes, run around, do childcare, no problem, then I know that day I needed to take more rest. Now, the in-between points I think are important because we can risk ourselves just tuning off our physical energy awareness where we just push ourselves. And I think that's where we can get into the danger zone. So it's like where you want to go for a workout or you want to go run a few errands and you know you're really not up for it, but you push yourself anyways. That is where I think the danger zone can happen. So as you learn more about yourself, you can really be honest with how you are feeling. And you're doing yourself a great kindness by honoring your energy levels. And so this week, an activity that you could do is to look and see, are you getting into that yellow zone? And how can you replenish your energy? So now we're going to get into the second activity. How do you replenish your physical activity? What are some ways that you take your charge levels back up? So what are some ways that you find the gas station in the middle of the day? Get another tank of gas. So some ways, for examples, are complete true rest, taking a pause without electronics, without any distractions. This in my yoga practice is restorative yoga, very gentle yoga, yoga nidra, yoga sleep, things like that. Taking moments to just completely rest, getting a massage, getting some body work done, making sure that we eat nutritious food, we drink enough water, we don't rely on caffeine and sugar for our energy. And then also daily gentle movement and weekly aerobic exercise in very moderated doses, not aggressive doses right away. So starting an exercise program wisely, of course, with physician approval and everything such as that. By keeping your body moving, you're helping your energy just keep those levels higher and higher. And so at this point, I would invite you to pause the video and write down at least 3 to 5 things that you have done historically to increase your energy levels. Okay, so coming back to this, I hope that you have a greater understanding of how you personally manage your physical energy and how you can continue to improve your physical energy and have a greater awareness of it. So now we're going to move into mental energy. Mental energy is the energy of the brain. And really, when we think about mental energy, we think about, like I said, concentration. One thing that I like to do is, before really getting into the nitty-gritty of this, is I like to think about, when am I most focused during the day? Now, I'll tell a little story. When I started my yoga training, I learned a type of yoga that was a 90-minute dialogue, actually a monologue. I had to memorize a script, 90 minutes. I don't know what I was thinking. I thought it was great. I went into it. And I realized that at different points of the day, I could memorize the script easier than other times. For me, that was 10 a.m. Like it charm. If I memorized a chunk of a dialogue at 10 a.m., I remembered it the next day. Whereas if I tried to do it at 8 a.m. or 4 p.m., I didn't remember much of it at all. And I used that to bring it into my OT practice to share with people that I believe we have different times of the day where our brain is on a rhythm and a pattern where it actually helps us focus more naturally. So I recommend to practice memorizing a new phrase or a saying. You can memorize a poem, you can memorize a different language, and you may think, oh, I can't memorize anything. Well, think about songs. Think about lyrics to a song, something that brings you enjoyment. The key is enjoyment, so nothing that's too boring or else you won't want to do it. There's no motivation, no point. So think about something exciting, and then try to do it at different times of the day. 5 minutes is all it takes. And you can start to see, wow, in the morning I have more mental energy, in the afternoon I have more mental energy. Now, this is different than work mental energy, because at work, typically we get into a pattern, we get into a little bit of, I call it the doldrums, where we don't have that motivation to learn new things. And so spicing it up with adding things that bring us pleasure and enjoyment are so important to the day. So you're not only helping your mental energy, but you're also helping your quality of life. So take a moment here and write down one activity that comes to mind, something that you think you could work on to memorize, something that you would want to memorize. And you may be surprised, you may actually learn something that you wouldn't have even thought of before. So take a moment, I invite you to write it down. Good, so coming back to this, we're going to briefly talk about mental energy when we have high mental energy when we have low mental energy. So when we're high with our mental energy, when we're feeling like we're good, we can memorize things easily. We have the ability to remember names. When somebody comes up to us and introduces themselves to us, we can remember their name. Of course, there are some people who may not remember the name, they remember the face. Insert whatever it is for you to easily remember. So easy things for you to remember. When your energy is high, you basically retain more information throughout the day. When the energy is low, something that may happen is we feel like we're on autopilot. So I was talking to one of my colleagues the other day. She said that she was scared because she didn't remember a part of her drive home, that she went into autopilot. She said, it scared me because I knew that I was liable in this car. I said, that's actually a really common thing because our brain is smart and it protects us. And so if it knows that we are low on energy, it will keep us from having to concentrate on every single thing, and it will literally go into autopilot. Now, if there are things that are unexpected, things that pop up, of course it will attend to those. But if it's a pretty routine thing, if it's a pretty routine walk, pretty routine drive, our brain's not going to remember exactly the color of this car, the color of the pavement, things like that. But of course, that is one of the risks for low mental energy, because we want to make sure that we're aware of our environment, we're there present in the moment, we're not going to cause harm to ourselves or others unintentionally. So of course, if you find that that's something that happens to you frequently, this may be a good conversation to have with a healthcare provider just to let them know what's going on. So other than that, if you're finding that you're having to have people repeat things over and over again, this is maybe an example of low mental energy. See if this happens in the beginning of the day, the end of the day. Does this happen at different times of the day? Does it happen in different weeks? Even this could be a cyclical thing, especially for hormone cycles. So if you find that certain weeks of the month, if you are having your mind a little bit dragging, a little bit sluggish, this could be something that's hormonal as well. So if you have a cycle, this could be something that you notice and something that you pick up on. So ways to improve mental energy. We'll take a moment here and I'll share a few examples, and then we'll take out the journal again and write just a few things that we can do to improve the mental energy. Again, yoga, slow, yin-based yoga, yin meaning slower, more restorative, things that bring you back to the present moment and the pause of life. You may find that more active exercise helps you in a moment, but I believe that by taking that moment to pause, we're actually recharging the brain. Instead of making our bodies exert more energy, making our minds exert more energy and focus more, we're giving that energy to our environment. We're not allowing ourselves to completely recharge. And so nice, slow activities that are repetitive and where we can do almost an exercise or a walking meditation are really beneficial, such as taking a walk outside. Swimming, if you swim. Personally, I would rather climb a mountain than swim. We do not have mountains where I am. So I go into my environment, I go to forests. I believe that being around trees is so good for mental energy. It's been proven actually that forest bathing, being out in the forest, can improve not only mental energy, but also your well-being and your mood. And then also taking rest breaks when working. So improving mental energy through taking mental rest breaks without technology. And probably you've heard this before, myself included, we tend to tune it out because our phones, our computers, they do offer a nice numbing sensation. It's very repetitive, it's soothing, we can go to what we enjoy, but then also knowing that that is giving ourselves to that electronic device. We're not taking that time to unplug. And so I invite you right now to take a moment, take your journal out, pause the video, and write down at least 3 to 5 ways that you can improve your mental energy. And if nothing comes to mind, then think about something that you've heard from somebody else. Think about a suggestion. Think about a practice that one of your mentors or your friends employs, and think if that's something that would be realistic to you. Okay, now emotional energy. Emotional energy is the best description of emotional energy is the ability to interact with our environment without taking it on ourselves. We tend to notice this really more through how we interact with other people. So for instance, if I am at work and Joe at work is really angry, and I notice I'm getting angry, as he's talking, I'm getting even more angry. And then by the end, I feel like I've taken on all of his anger. And now I was feeling great before Joe came over at me. And then now all of a sudden I'm super angry. That to me indicates that I have not guarded myself. I have not shielded myself, which we'll discuss in a moment, where my energy is very vulnerable emotionally. And if you've noticed this before, you may feel that you are more vulnerable to the emotions of other people. You could be what's considered an empath, which is a very powerful type of individual who understands emotions on a wholly different level. You actually can absorb those emotions. You can feel those emotions. You're the people that can walk into a room and you know exactly the mood, you know the temperature, you know the conversation dynamic, what's happened. It may be hard for you to be in those environments where there are a lot of people. So as you're listening to this, you may think, yeah, that resonates with me, or nope, I'm good. So taking a moment just to honor the type of person that you are and to know it's not bad to have low emotional energy with that. It just means that there are some extra things that can be done to help you protect yourself. So low emotional energy can also look like you feel that you don't have a handle on how you're feeling emotionally. It can feel confusing to you. So if somebody asks you, how are you doing today? And you respond, I'm good. But then really, taking a couple minutes later, you're thinking, well, now I'm feeling flustered, I'm feeling upset. And it's hard for you to clarify. That's an example of a low emotional energy. Now, high emotional energy looks like you're able to protect your own emotions while being around people who have extreme emotions. And I say extreme emotions because those are the emotions that tend to leak into our own personal protective bubble. So think about a bubble around your body, a literal bubble. And if you're around somebody else, there's a really powerful meme, cartoon that I saw circulating on Instagram. And it was somebody was upset and they were talking, and this other person was right here. And this other person had almost like a pig pen from Charlie Brown, like lines of energy going around him. And the other person was very clean. They felt like, they were good. Other person came up to him and it showed like 2 cycles later what happened. All that energy came into the other person. And so that person walked away feeling a little bit better, while as the person who started feeling good, angry person came at him, good person absorbed all that negative stuff and took it away. And that's really an energetic osmosis. So as that happens, if you are guarded, if you have high emotional energy, you're able to literally shield yourself from those people who have the extreme emotions. And it's a difficult concept to fully explain. It's one that must be felt. And so this can be something to do during the week as a self-reflection, to notice when you're around other people, family, friends, colleagues, even people on the news, really any interaction, you can see how you feel. So do you absorb, or do you feel like you're able to take a step back and honor how you're feeling in the same moment? And you can look and see during the day, Is my emotional energy consistent? Or are there moments where I'm at work and all of a sudden I tank and I can't deal with people, I can't deal with emotions, I can't deal with this. So this is a moment where I invite you to pause the video, write down any triggers that you have that risk the energy of your emotions dropping low. Is it certain people? Is it certain events? Do you find yourself at certain times of the day? So take a moment and pause the video now. So coming back to this, looking at it as emotional energy with a cyclical nature, it's not consistent. We don't feel the same every single day. We're human beings. We evolve on a daily basis, actually on an hourly basis even. And as I mentioned before, with our hormone cycles and our circadian rhythm cycles, then we're different every single day. So this can be a really, I think, fun activity to do, is to look at the weeks of the month. And without thinking of this as a chore to do, I like to think of this as being detective of our energy. Every week, I will do a little inventory and see, did I feel like I was emotionally guarded this week, meaning good guarded, meaning protection? Or did I feel like I was leaking? Like I felt like I didn't really have that protection built up. And just taking a moment and looking. Now you can actually do this with all three. You can do this with your physical and your mental as well. So at the top of my planner for every week, I'll write down how I'm feeling. I'll do like a 1 to 10 inventory. So 1 meaning not at all or really low, 10 meaning really good or 100%. That's something that you can do if you'd like to. Now, how can you increase your emotional energy? So you can do what's called shielding. And shielding is a really powerful practice. It's where we literally visualize that there is a barrier surrounding our body. Like I said with that bubble, we can think of it being a light, we can think of it being a bubble or a veil or something that really can't be permeated through or get through. And we can use that. There are examples online. You can look at YouTube videos. If you take a yoga class, a lot of times in yoga classes, they will help you with that. And it's a very powerful practice. Also exercising our spiritual practice. If you have a spiritual practice, the more that we practice that, in turn, increases our emotional energy. And then also meditating with visualization. One of my most powerful visualizations for getting rid of all of the, I call it emotional junk and gunk during the day, is to think about those cords of energy coming out of the bottoms of the feet. So if you've heard about grounding, then I use a grounding meditation through the bottoms of the feet. And I think about 2 cords coming out of the soles of my feet, entering into the ground. And as I exhale, I visualize my body coming from the top down, just like a pitcher of water. And I visualize coming down, clearing my body, and then going out the bottoms of the feet with the exhale. So literally like you would a power washer, power washing the body with the breath. Super powerful. If it doesn't feel like it's for you, I invite you to just try it and see. You might be surprised. Also, another tool for increasing emotional energy is to elevate the body. So during the day, when we're on the computer, we're doing what? We're hunching our shoulders. We're coming forward. We're entering what's called a protective position. And we need to counteract that. So instead of coming forward, we need to come back. We need to open up the arms. We need to elevate the arms up. And then we need to force ourselves to smile because that actually increases the feel-good hormones. So if you are at work and you feel like there's no way that you can do this without people thinking that there's something going on with you, you can go to the restroom, you can go to a break room and take 30 seconds, elevate the arms up. There's tremendous evidence behind this. See how you feel. Take a moment to just do it now and see how it feels to put your arms up and smile. And then one of my other favorite tools for emotional energy increasing is affirmations. Affirmations are repetitive statements that you or somebody else has written that help you imprint in your brain a positive statement. So examples of affirmations may be, I am able to do this, simple as that. "You got this" is a powerful mantra or affirmation, or "When I surrender more." The list goes on and on. So you can think about ones that work for you. You can Google them. If you have practice already in place, then really built on what's already there. So take a moment. I invite you to pause the video and write down again 3 to 5 ways to increase your emotional energy. So what can we do with this knowledge of our energy cycle components? Think about for a moment, before we started this practice, did you have an awareness of the different parts of energy? Since learning the different components, do you feel like you have a better grasp of perhaps trends that have happened? Maybe different routines that are in place that have the potential to improve your energy if they are tweaked? Maybe you can spread things across the day in a better way for you. Now, right now, this is being filmed during the COVID-19 pandemic, and our routines have completely shifted. So I feel that this has to be said with a great deal of flexibility and self-forgiveness, that in no way, shape, or form are we supposed to be perfect with our routine at all. This is something that's very fluid. Instead of thinking of it as having to be the perfect routine all the time, always having to have just the right amount of energy, instead what we're able to do with this knowledge is we're able to better structure our days. So starting our day and looking at it as, do I feel like this serves my best interest energetically? And then at the end of the day, if you feel really good looking back and thinking, wow, okay, what did I do? What can I do again? Because this really worked for me. And then we can better practice self-forgiveness. So if we're having on the opposite end a really negative day, if we're feeling really down energetically, mentally, physically, then how can we look at what we did during that day or what happened during that day to understand why we're feeling the way we feel? And then finally, we can align with our true selves, and we can fulfill our dreams by looking at this from a holistic standpoint. And so I want to invite you to take 5 minutes, set a timer for 5 minutes, and journal how this information is going to serve you this week. Take a moment, pause the video, and come back to it when you're done. Okay, so now that you've done the journaling practice, I invite you again to look at all of the information from today, all of the journaling prompts, all of the writing that you have done, and take a moment to reflect on anything that you have written, anything that brings to mind even more questions, things that pop up, any messages even that you may come through your mind that's meant for you right now. And if you would like to pause the video again and just reflect on anything that's come up.
After your practice, I am so excited to provide some real compassionate context and some opportunities to respond to this really incredible information that Emily has shared. So first, I want to share that I like to think of self-care as an energetic balancing practice, which is in the same conversation that we're having today. I'd love to provide a little bit of a biological framework of kind of what's going on in the brain when we experience stress or overwhelm, whether that be acute stress or chronic stress. When we talk about conservation, we're absolutely in conversation with all of the ways that the world affects us. Now, sometimes it can bring us energy and be, really fulfilling and cup-filling. But other times, especially considering that Emily and I are recording this during the COVID pandemic, sometimes our world totally and completely depletes us. And I really believe in having choice, voice, and power in how we feel. And this is one of the frameworks to give us just a really good framework of understanding and an opportunity to respond. So today I'll be talking about the window of tolerance alongside polyvagal theory. The vagus nerve is what folks call the soul nerve. It starts at the top of our brain and goes all the way through our body. It has so much to do with the ways that we respond to ourselves, our loved ones, and the world at large. And it's another just really great framework in making sense of how our body reckons with our finite capacity for energy. Like the archetype of Aquarius, the water bearer, one cannot pour from an empty basin, nor can they control water that's overfilled. Hyperarousal, a spectrum of the overstimulated sympathetic vagal state, flight or fight, shows up in similar ways of an overfilled basin, where this energy pours over with water, and the water bearer can often lose control of both the basin and the water in it. When we're in a fight or flight state, often we lose access to some of our deepest conscious wisdom, and also access to our values and our beliefs. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have hypoarousal, or the spectrum of numbed out activation of the dorsal vagal state. This is what it looks like to freeze and fawn. Some of us don't really have context for fawn. It's a pretty new framework for the window of tolerance. And fawn has a lot to do with relational closeness or acquiescence of a perceived threat. If any of you are familiar with, Stockholm syndrome in the cultural lexicon, it's this idea that the body finds safety in being close with the threat because the body perceives will be safer that way. I digress. So freeze or fawn, or this hyperarousal, shows up in similar ways that an empty basin may not meet the needs of the water bearer, leaving them thirsty and lacking energy. Now, as all things on a binary, this happens on a spectrum. Also, I just want to call into the room that a lived history of trauma can often really we may be going back and forth, based on your access to stress, your access to rest. But also every single one of us tends to have a greatest hits of stress response. So when we look at high energy and overwhelm of fight or flight, or when we look at low energy and this kind of like empty, numb feeling of fawn or freeze, I want to provide you a couple of moments to kind of sit with that and maybe journal with what feels like your greatest hit and stress response. So now that we've had time to kind of explore what our own energetic signature looks like, what happens when we're feeling overwhelmed, I want to share with you the access to choice. So the window of tolerance is this safe zone in the middle of the spectrum of hyper and hypoarousal. When we're in this safe vagal state, we have access to our highest wisdom, we have access to our values, our body is able to do all of the really incredible regeneration processes, elimination process, and just be really present. So when we find ourselves outside of this window of tolerance, I'd love to share you some tools. So in order to get back to that safe window where we can access safe space in the ventral vagal nerve, which allows us access to feelings of safety, connection, calm, and allows our body to go back to, that really important work of restoration, elimination, and digestion that keeps our body working well, we need to cultivate balance for ourselves. So we can downregulate from a hyper-aroused state via breath work, focused on extending the exhale. This can also look like distraction or co-regulation with a safe social support. Our bodies are built to be in relationship with one another. And so often, if we find ourselves really low on all of our energy levels, in order to get more, we may need support. And if we have a safe and trusted support, literally just our bodies being close to each other enacts something called the mirror neurons. Our bodies are in constant conversation with each other, whether or not we are consciously in conversation with each other. And so if we choose to share space with a safe person, their body can invite us to slow down and cut back on their level. Also, safe social supports often help with feelings of safety. And safety is something really necessary, or stability or certainty. All of those things are really important to get us back into that window of tolerance. And then when we look at responses to hypoaroused state, we can upregulate via grounding, just like Emily had talked about earlier, and those grounding cords of our feet, even standing on, grass or fresh dirt, just noticing what it's like to feel really grounded there can help us gain some energy, just even from our earth, metaphysically. Breath work focused on extending the inhale is going to give us more breath, which helps to facilitate more energy. Body awareness or mindful movement really helps us to sit in our body and once again kind of recycle and replenish that energy, or once again co-regulation with a safe social support. And so the more you know your body, the more you know your responses, the more access to choice, voice, and power that you have. Now, when we're also looking at some of the different ways that we can respond to feelings of overwhelm, I also want to share some wisdom from the concept called mindful self-compassion. This was formulated by Dr. Kristen Neff, and we could talk hours about self-compassion. That's another circle for another day. But I think it can be really important to honor the rhythms of self-care. So more of those behaviors that can really help us get back into that window of tolerance and replenish our energy. In honoring our natural cycles, we're often called to balance our energies when we encounter an extended period of time in either action or a pose. We'll explore this space and choice in calling in balance as a facet of our self-care constellation. So yin is a concept that Emily had already shared. Yin is a kind of rhythm that contains the attributes of being with ourselves in a compassionate way, comforting, soothing, and validating ourselves. Yin energy can help us to balance after an especially draining day, or if we've met an extended period of action, providing for the needs of others, or if we've just met exhaustion. I like to think of this as a receptive rhythm, listening, quiet, nurturing, calm, and pacified. This can look like rest, soothing or comforting yourself when you're in pain, and resting in loving, connected presence with you're alone or when you're with those that you care about. In contrast, on the other end of this spectrum, we have a yang rhythm. Yang is all about acting in the world, protecting, providing, and motivating ourselves. A yang rhythm of self-care or response to these energetic changes can help us balance after extended periods of rest, restriction, or quiet. It can help to awake our mind, body, and spirit to the present and remind us of our intrinsic power and resilience. I like to think of this as a generative rhythm. Expressive, confident, passionate, taking up, brave and taking up space, and meeting our needs in an empowered way. This can look like seeing the truth of a situation in courage, protecting yourself or those you love, and standing strong with others in the face of hostility or harm. Given some of the intersections of our experience right now in our world, yang energy can look like activism. Yang energy can look like bringing attention to important things in the world that you really believe in and helping to provide a voice for those who are disempowered. These energies of yin and yang, of receiving and of generating energy are so important and can be another facet of our energy conservation practice. Now, my favorite response and kind of reckoning with what our own personal practice of the yin and yang of self-care can look like is an art project. So I'll invite you to bring out your journal again. And I'd like you to, in the middle of your page, draw a yin and yang. Now, as you draw this symbol, on either side, I'd like you to choose which side is yin and which side is yang. This is going to be your self-care menu. Often when we're feeling depleted, the last thing we can think about is what we need to regenerate ourselves. And so I find, and often with a lot of my clients, if we can do the work in a high energy day of creating a menu, it saves a little bit of energy when we really need it. So think of tools and practices that you already use. Think of supports that are already close to you. Often when we get aspirational in these practices, it can feel really difficult to get to when we're feeling overwhelmed. So once again, choosing greatest hits, choosing tools or practices that you have access to. And if you'd like to try a new practice, maybe exploring community or instruction in that, whether you have a mentor or whether you'd like to explore some of the resources that we have available at Omaha Integrative Care, whether that be joining our yoga practice so that that can be a part of your menu, whether it be a slow flow and kind of generating and moving through energy, or our restorative yoga, yin, or yoga nidra in kind of balancing and releasing the energy that no longer serves us. This can also look like your care coaching model. We learn about being with ourselves sometimes in being with another. And so finding a therapist or a coach or some sort of support who can help provide us with ideas, give us a safe place to practice, and encouragement can be a really, really great option for those of us who might not know where to start. So I'll give us a few minutes to fill out our yin and yang self-care menu. Now that you have your self-care menu, I really invite you to keep this page. Maybe this is a journal that you use often. If not, I'd highly encourage you to either transcribe this in another place in a journal you often use or a planner, or you can even cut it out and tape it in a planner or a journal you use often. Having this tool very present is another way that we continue to have choice, voice, and power in how we feel, and another way that we can honor our finite energy and access to it, as well as our own unique and exquisite practice in energy conservation. We've explored so many topics today, Emily and I, and so we'd like to give you some more time to sit with and journal with whatever part of this circle's information really resonated with you. What wisdom, what insight, what tools really call to you and feel like they belong to a part of your practice? Maybe this is something that you're familiar with. Maybe this is something that you've just heard of today. I invite you to take some time and really walk through it in a journaling practice. Often journaling is the way that we can cut through all of the noise and really listen to the true wisdom of our body and what we really need in this moment. So we'll take some time here. After you've taken some more time to journal, sit with yourself and your experience in the circle. Emily and I are so thrilled to reflect our gratitude and our appreciation for honoring this time and space with us. We know that considering some of the limitations of our world right now, whether that be COVID or whether that be just work-life balance and maybe not having access to, groups or circles, we're so thrilled to provide this resource for you, something where you can really do it in your own safe spaces and at your own rhythm. and there's more to come from here. We're so looking forward to really exploring the depth and breadth of the tools and resources that we can all use to really pour into ourselves and tend to our body, mind, spirit, and everything. Thank you so much. It's been a real honor to spend this time with you, and take care.